Hey everyone, it's Fentony. His Dark Material Season 2 Episode 3 is in the books. It's time for my review. So as always, just be careful for spoilers from this episode, but don't worry, I won't be talking about future episodes and future books. We're going to talk about this episode and everything that comes before. We are getting to my favourite part of the subtle knife now, but this episode's had some big changes, and I will admit it worked, and some of the changes are actually my favourite scenes so far. But let's start off with Lara. She goes back to Will's Oxford to meet Mary Malone again, to learn more about Dust, even though the Lethiometer told her she needs to help Will find his dad. She's kind of been a bit selfish and going on her own quest, and for that she's caught by the detective that's looking for Will and his letters from his dad. She's so confident in herself and her abilities to make it through this interrogation. She's a great liar, but she slips up when the detective mentions Will's name. Lara's like, yeah, he's there, and then she realises the moment she said it, she's messed up. And I love that moment on the book, and I think the show done it great. And honestly, it gets even worse for Lara, as Lord Boreal has stolen the Lethiometer. And I think it's a bit different in the books. I think he takes her and then voluntarily drops her off, whereas in the show, she wants to get out. She kinda doesn't feel safe. Whereas in the books, I think he's trying to play charming, trying to play very safe adult. Whereas in the show, he definitely comes across as a bad guy. You can tell that he's not interested in Lara's well-being. He's kinda kidnapping her. But he does let her go, and she's left her bag, and he's taken the Lethiometer, as he knows she'll come back for that, and probably bring Will as well. Two birds with one stone here. I will admit though, even though I got the same reaction from the book when Lara slips up and leaves the Lethiometer, I will admit it's not as good as the book. Because we already know who Lord Boreal is. We know Sir Charles is Lord Boreal from Lyra's world. We've seen his face, we've seen him before at the party, and the show's obviously expanded his story in the first season by having him cross over into Will's world from, I think, episode 2, was it? Obviously the book, you don't see his face, and then when the big reveal happens, you're like, what the hell? But then you realise all the clues were there, and if you look back, yeah, it's all there. And if I recall correctly, later in the book, Lara sees Lord Boreal's snake demon up his sleeve and realises that he's from her world, and then recalls seeing him at the party. But obviously in the show, Lord Boreal's already revealed himself. And that makes sense, because there's no point in trying to hide his identity anymore, as the audience knows that Sir Charles Lantrum is Lord Boreal. So I think it was for the best that he revealed himself now, and instead of dragging on later. Because what's the point? We've already seen his face, we know who he is. So yeah, he sent Will and Lyra to get the subtle knife from the Tower of the Angels, and he's going to trade that for a Lethiometer. Like I said, no spoilers from the next episode, or anything later in the books, but the next episode and the one after are going to have some of my favourite chapters from the subtle knife. I just hope the show can do it justice. So yeah, let's stay with Lyra for now. I loved seeing her and Will in the cinema. I think it was a brilliant scene. They were watching Paddington Bear, and I loved her reaction to popcorn. It's disgusting, it's like wood shavings, but she just can't stop eating it. I get the same reaction. I love popcorn. Kinda makes me feel bloated, but I just can't stop eating it. And yeah, this episode is just full of great character moments. I think this is one of the best episodes so far. I think perhaps the season 1 finale is still the best, but this is up there. It's definitely a character development episode. Angelica got more screen time in Chittagazze, and it's hinting at the person in the Tower of the Angels where the knife is. And it further reminds the audience that Will's close to becoming a man, and therefore being affected by the spectres very soon. Not my favourite scene ever, and it was kind of distracting from all the cool things that are going on in other places, but it's incredibly important for what's to come. Sometimes these scenes do distract, and you kind of feel at the time it's just a waste of time, I'd rather be somewhere else, with Lee and Mrs. Coulter, or with Yorick, or with Lyra. But these small scenes that you might not always think are the best, they build upon other scenes, build upon the story, build upon the characters. They're vital. So we'll talk about Mary now. Obviously Lyra goes to meet her, that doesn't work out, but we get to go inside Mary's home, and meet her sister and her niece and nephew. I don't think this is in the books, and you could argue it's not necessary, but it does show us that Mary's focused solely on her work. It's affecting her personal life. She forgot the kids were coming over, and it reminds us that she's about to get kicked out of the lab because she hasn't found a breakthrough. Her funding's about to be cut. You could argue it did slow the episode down, but Mary's one of the best characters. And we see her later when she uses the I-Ching to communicate with the dust or the shadow particles. And we do see an image of a serpent on the screen, and you book readers know exactly what's going on, but more on that later for people that haven't read it. So yeah, Yorick Bjornsson's back. The armoured bears are one of the most recognisable elements from the His Dark Material series. If you think about the Golden Compass film, chances are you think about the compass itself and the big polar bear on the front cover. But Yorick's not actually in the Subtle Knife, but it's great to see him back, because we've all missed him, haven't we? And it would be pretty strange that, you didn't have him in this season. Season 1 he's promoted very heavily, especially his introduction. I remember that being the big moment in the first trailer that was released. And then the second season, he's nowhere to be found. Makes sense in the books, as the story's drifted from Lyra's world more into Will's world, and focused on them too, and other characters as well. I can't remember if this scene does happen early in the Amber Spyglass. I've got a feeling it does, or something very similar. But basically the armoured bears are struggling since Azrael opened the window to the other world. It's melting the ice caps, and the seals are leaving, so the bears are starving. Yorick's king now, and he's focusing on saving his kind. But he loves Lyra, and he owes her so much. And Seraphina's demon did say the witches are going to get justice against the Magisterium, and I'm sure in some trailers we've seen them fight back against them, after destroying their homes in the lakes. War is coming, we'll see more witches, and we'll see more armoured bears, don't worry about that. So let's get to the main talking point of this episode. Lee Scoresby and Mrs. Coulter. It's a brand new scene made up for the show, didn't happen in the books, but I wish it did. Absolutely brilliant. I believe in the books they don't meet face to face, but you've got two of the best characters and two of the best actors, makes sense to take advantage of that. Lin-Manuel Miranda and Ruth Wilson stole this episode, and I'm going to say it for now, these might be the best scenes so far, or at least my favourite. They've got a mutual love for Lyra, but of course they kind of show in different ways. They both love her and they both care for her, but Lee just wants to protect her, make sure she's safe. She's the daughter he never had. He had a bad childhood, he wants to protect her. Whereas Mrs. Coulter, who loves and cares for her, kind of wants to control her as well. Mrs. Coulter threatens Lee with torture, but he won't give in, as he says his life is worth 1/10 of Lyra, and Mrs. Coulter agrees. Damn, that was heavy. And I love the backstory of Lee's dad and how he used to hit him, and how that relates to Mrs. Coulter's upbringing, as they both had pretty crappy childhoods. This meeting was just so tense, so gripping. I'm going to say it was perfect. Favourite addition on the show so far. One of my favourite scenes. Even though I could say so many bad words about the Golden Monkey, I will admit, when he held Mrs. Coulter's hand, yeah, I choked up a little bit. And of course Hester comforting Lee about talking about his dad. Brilliant writing. We go away from Lee and Mrs. Coulter for a bit, but we do go back after the cinema scene of Will and Lyra. And Mrs. Coulter's got a message from Lord Boreal, and he knows where Lyra is. Yeah, they're kind of allies, and they do work with the Magisterium together, but Mrs. Coulter knows that he might harm Lyra. So what does Mrs. Coulter do? She frees Lee and tells him about the prophecy of Lyra, and the fact that people are looking for Lyra, and not all good. She set Lee free as she knows that he wants to keep Lyra safe. She has a way to find Lyra herself, but she knows if Lee finds her first, at least she's safe. And this is brilliant. Amazing writing, amazing direction, amazing acting. Absolutely brilliant, and I'm so excited for more. But of course I want you guys to let me know your thoughts on this. About Mrs. Coulter and Lee Scoresby scenes, about the entire episode. Episode 4 next week, so we're over halfway now. Remember, there's only 7 episodes this season. But I think episode 4 is going to raise it to the next level. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't, check out these videos, and I'll see you in the next one.